console 48. Because you know what for what we do, you know, you're never going to hear the difference, and who the hell cares, you know? I mean, if you're in a studio and you're doing a band and you want the, you know, the shimmer of the snare drum, or, you know, all this vocal,
all that stuff.
you know, there's a lot of stuff band wise. If you're doing high end bands with high end mics and stuff like that, you might be able to hear the difference in between 48 and 96. But you know, doing corporate shows that, you know, you go in one day and 3 days of talking heads and a little bit of playback, and then you're out of there. It's like, who the hell cares, you know? Let's just make the thing work.
Are your snapshots from CLs? Can they be ingested?
You know what? There is a program that Yamaha said that will adapt, but I've spent so much time. Well, when I first spent the day, better part of a day on the DM7 in the shop, trying to get the hang of the thing and building a template for it. Then, of course, 3 days later, I did that show and changed the whole template because I decided I didn't like what I did, and, you know, changed everything around. So be honest with you, I have a set of templates for every console, usually 3 templates. I have a band template, a monitor template, and a corporate template for each console. And then I do patch sheets for the guys. So I do Excel spreadsheets and I hand them to the guys so they know exactly what's patched to where and what numbers going where, and Dante channels and every other damn thing. I put a lot of time into not wasting time when I get there, you know?
Actually, it's great that you can print that out, all those channel lists, once you've programmed the console. Same as in the Digico, I always print the channel lists out and the outputs, and especially if you're repatching stuff.
You can print it?
Yeah, you export the file and then you just
the console file? Oh, I didn't know that. Well, I just have an Excel spreadsheet that I build my, you know, patch sheet on, and then then once I get it figured out, then I'll prop it up on my desk and I'll go into the console file and I'll build the console. But I didn't know that you could print out a console file, really.
I haven't done it on the DM7, but you can certainly do it on the CLs.
I did not know that.
You just export the patch lists, and the Digicos do it too.
My God, that's really cool. I'll have to try
are you
that.
just making this up to pull his chain? Are you just doing
they're
that?
CBS files. That's what they come out as CBS files, so they're easily transportable.
Okay, so you have
Wayne,
a CL5.
you're so mean. I can't believe how mean Wayne is doing that to you.
Really?
Unbelievable, Wayne.
They're
take
pulling
a picture with
they're
a
pulling my
Polaroid like
leg.
the old days.
Well, you know, I can't tell you how many times I've had to do things where, you know, I was running performance manager or something, and I had to give somebody, you know, until, of course, now you can do the QR code and it comes up on your phone. But until then, I'd be taking pictures of the hang thing and the pins and everything, and then sending it off to my A2s. I said, here's what we're doing. Here's the patch sheet, you know.
So you can't see it really. I don't think.
You got to turn off your background if you want to show anything.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's a Digico sheet. You can't, because I don't know how to turn my background off without.
So does the Yamaha do it, or are you just pulling my leg?
No, I've got CL ones as well. I got CL ones here too.
So you have the CL1 program, or what do you call it?
Offline editor.
Offline editor, and you have it up on your screen. And how do you print that out?
So you go to the patch list, so the patching section.
On the go to the page of patching.
Yeah, and somewhere there it'll have I can't remember the sequence off the top of my head, but it's in patch.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, I don't know that anybody I know even knows that, because nobody talks about it. But what a handy thing, man! I'll have to try it.
Wonderful.
This weekend,
if you had more free time like Wayne, you'd be able to figure these things out. You know, that's.
Well, I'm loading in on Sunday, and I got a CL5, and I was just tomorrow I'm going to touch up the patch, and what I'll do is I'll look into that tomorrow and see if I can print it out, because boy, that would be handy as hell. That's for sure.
Oh, I think
I'd like a report. Save you some time, wouldn't it?
Oh, it's unreal.
It would save me time, yes, because essentially I'm duplicating everything. I do it on paper first, and then I build the console file, and then as I change things, I go back and change the Excel spreadsheet. But good Lord,
I'm always it's like my checklist. So you create,
oh my God,
and then you print it all out. And you know where it all went.
Yes,
And
which shows that you do over and over again. There's many shows that I do every year. And the fact that what I'm loading in Sunday, I've been doing for 20 years, this gig. And it's
oh, wow.
it's an award show and it's attached to a convention. It's the builders. So they're gonna have, panels of architects and, builders on the stage talking about stuff. But the setup is the same.
Isn't that in Las Vegas?
One of them is, yeah, we do about 20 of them around the country, but the one
Yeah.
that's in Vegas is the Nationals. It's the national one. And we do that, but I've been doing that since the 90s.
Very good.
The
Very
people that
good. Hey,
produce it
listen,
are,
let me just stop you for 1 second and I'll let you
Okay.
go back to it. Just want to say hi, everybody. Welcome to the Thinking Out Loud with Friends. This is our 212th consecutive meeting. And if there was ever one that wasn't going to happen, this is the one that I thought wasn't going to happen. But here I am in a hotel room in the middle of basically nowhere, at least for those people that don't live here. It's middle of nowhere. For those people that live here, I'm sure it's their whole world because it's very rural and it's different than anything that I've ever experienced. But welcome, and just remember everything here is an opinion. Bruce, take it away.
So anyway, yeah, that would help me a lot, that's for sure. But it would be perfect on this show. In fact, when we're done talking about it, I'll probably give it a shot because, when Mike and I did the drawings for the show, he says, "Why don't we just use last year's drawings?" And I said, "I just need a couple of coordinates off of it." But other than that, yeah. So yesterday I sent my systems engineer. I sent him the drawing and my patch list, and I said, "I'm not totally done with the patch list yet, but I'm getting damn close." And by the time I email you stuff on Friday or Saturday, it'll be complete. And don't, I always print stuff out. I always tell my guys, don't bother printing it out because I'll have sheets when you get there. But it lets them know what I'm thinking. So what we're doing won't be a total surprise when they walk in the room. And that way they can ask me questions before we get there and say, "Hey, what's this or what's that, or why are we doing this or why are we doing that?" So
I don't think Bruce, I've been any good at corporate. Corporate's a bit of a thing where you got to do too many cues.
well, there's a lot of cues. The award show that I do for the builders, which I do probably 18 of them a year. It's a 3-hour show and there's usually 70 awards, and which means there's 140 cues for me because, well, more than that, it's 3 times because there's a VO that introduces the runners up, and then we go back to the stage and they introduce the winner, and then I play them on, and then they talk and they say thanks to their grandmother and all that stupid bullshit, and then we play them off, and then then they introduce the next category, and then I do the runners up, and then we go back to the lectern, and and it moves pretty quick, and everybody gets to thank their grandmothers, which is what takes it so damn long. And we used to do it with a live band, which was just crazy. They'd do the walk-in and they would do all the award stings, and then after the show they could dance afterwards and play whatever they play. But in 2007, when the building housing market took such a dump, Lisa called me up, our producer, and she said, "How can we make this show cheaper audio wise?" And I said, "Well, get rid of the band." Because we were doing like 6 mixes on the stage, and it was a pretty big band. It was like 15 people for what it was. And she says, "Well, how do we do that?" And I said, "Get your daughter, who was 10 at the time," I says, "to go online and pick out like 40 songs." I said, "Make sure they're not rude, download them or whatever you do and send them to me on a disc or whatever, and then I'll edit them, and then I'll send them back to you, and you can build them into the show file, with all of the voiceovers and everything." And so since 2007 we've been doing it without the band. It just makes me pretty busy, but and I usually run 2 laptops because one backs up the other. So if one takes a dump, I can just move over and keep going on the other one. But knock on wood, hasn't happened yet. So
would you have a complete cue list though? Even if there was no rehearsal, you would have a complete.
Yes. Well, we never have a rehearsal. So we always take off with our flying by the seat of our pants, but it's a pretty simple show for the most part. So what I did is I bought a, like I call it a script holder, but it's one of these things you clamp on the desk and it holds your paperwork. But I had to buy one heavy duty enough to hold a binder with 100 pages in it. So it sits just higher than my than the console does, and then my 2 laptops are to the right. And basically every category is a page. And then I write at the top, they introduce the category and they say the runners up are, and I circle R and I put 17, let's say, if it's award 17. And then I hit 17 on my my instant replay program, and it reads off, 6 or 7 categories, and then we go back to the lectern, and it's all written in a different highlight, and then when they get to the bottom, they say the winner is blah blah blah, and then 17A would be their play on, and then we're off to the next one.
So are you? I'll carry on.
So yeah, so it's just so I get the whole script ahead of time, and what we're doing that afternoon is I just sit at the table and I highlight in yellow highlighter, my key words that I'm going to trigger off of, and I put in magic marker, Sharpie, I just write the number next to it so that it's easier to see than what she typed out, because she, it's hard to read stuff that people type out when you're trying to mix a show and keep an eye on the stage and everything else. So
Which was my next question. Do you?
Yeah,
you're out in a OB van. You're not in the room.
Oh,
Sometimes
I'm always in the room. I'm in the
you're
room.
always in the room.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not mixing a show from the bathroom.
right. Yeah.
I did that a couple times. We used to do this Century Plaza. You probably know Jan, the Century Plaza in LA. That ballroom,
a lot of shows there.
That was a premier ballroom for a long time. Now it's just a big ugly black box because they remodeled it. They got rid of the classic beautiful ballroom with an Austrian drape, and it was an animal to work in, but it was gorgeous ballroom. It was very historic, and they got rid of it all. But anyway, so we used to we did like the Directors Guild or something in there, and had to do with directors, and they always had a band and a lectern, and boy, one year they did not want front of house in the room. So I don't know how well you know that room, Jan, but up in the back over the doors where they walk in, they have, where they have that whole hallway where the spotlights, look down into the ballroom. And so I set up a PM 4000, and all my playback machines, which were instant replays back then. And when I started, and basically set up some near fields, and once I got the system tune downstairs, I set the near fields to the same curve as the system tune was, and then delayed them, and I basically mixed the show from up there. And I told them the only way I'd do it is to put one of my guys that I trusted down on the floor wearing a wireless comm on my channel 2. So if we were having any kind of problem, or if there was any, little bit of noises that I couldn't hear up in that hole, that he could tell me. And we got through most of the show, and he'd say, 3.5, notch that, just a couple dB, just touch it. Okay, that's good. So that's how we got through the show. But between you and I, it was quite doable. But I always tell people, no, I'm in the room. If I can't be in the room, get somebody else to do it. I don't need that headache.
So when you're doing your show, like a corporate show like that, and you've got all your cue sheets and everything, but you're in the room or watching a monitor, which do you focus on? Because you've got to do 3 things there. You've got to watch what's going on. You've got to watch your cue notes, and you've got to do your console. Okay,
so yeah, that's a really good question, because I have a little story what happened to me 2 weeks ago. So basically, if we get a rehearsal, it's usually on a bigger show, and there's guest presenters that have demos, and they want to rehearse the demos, and they want to do this. So whenever we're rehearsing a demo, we always do the voiceover in the play on or the opening video for that section where they bring him out to do the demo. So the show caller, once we do the rehearsal, if I don't know the show caller, I usually say to the show caller, after the show caller knows me and knows how I mix the show, right? I'll say, okay, here's the deal. Look at me, pay attention to me for a minute. And I says, do you want me to take your cues as God, or do you want me to take your cues as an advisement and mix the show based on what's happening on the stage and how I think it should flow based on your calls? And usually they'll say, mix the show, you know what you're doing, right? So, which means if he doesn't say, play this guy off, I play him off anyway. Or when I play him on, if he doesn't tell me, okay, dunk the track, turn on the lectern, which they don't even tell me anymore. I just watch the stage. And by the time they hit their mark to start their speech, I got the music out, and I usually put their mic up as they're 2 steps onto the stage, because a lot of times they start talking before they hit their mark, but I don't want their mic on before they get on the stage, or that'll get you in a heap of trouble, So what happened 2 weeks ago is we did a gig, and we did a rehearsal. And when the guy came off the stage, I had a quick question for him, and his name was Luke. And I said, Luke, you know, it was early in the morning because he was the keynote for that day. And I said, you know, I had a question. I said, so do you want blah, 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 or do you want blah, 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 blah? And he said, blah, 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 blah. Thanks, Bruce, for asking. And then my show caller, who I didn't know at the time, he was, you know, somebody I hadn't met before. This guy was a power freak, you know. He didn't do well all week, you know. He was a pain in the ass. And he had bitched at us a bunch of times because when we do our comm, we do ISO channels on all of the comms. So production is channel 1 on our belt packs, and that's who we listen to the show call on. And then channel 2 of my belt pack is my audio team. And channel 2 of lighting's belt pack is the lighting guys. And channel 2 of videos is all the video guys, you know, and the cameras and whatever. So we have tech departments on our channel too, so that we can talk about things that come up and not interrupt the show call, because I can't listen to camera calls while the guy's calling the show. There's too many things to listen to. I listen to the show caller and keywords and I mix the show, right? So he said to me, he says, God damn it. He says, don't you ever talk to the client. It's like, oh my God, half of my clients are my own clients, you know, that I've been with since the 90s, you know, and I knew them, you know, and this guy just bitched me out so bad, right? So I said, okay, you know, I was really cool about it. And I just sat there just like I always did, smiled at him, right? So we got into the show and we were doing the demo. Well, before the demo happened, the guy had an opening video. Now, it was a lady that was going to do the presentation. It was about 45 minutes long. And her husband was the graphics guy. And all of the stuff he said, Jeff, his name was, Jeff said, so don't forget, guys, leave the graphics A audio at where we did the rehearsal. I will do my own fade outs. I have her play on music. We're going to run the video. It's all on my computer. Just when she comes out on the stage, leave our graphics machines hot. Just turn her mic on and let her do her thing until she's done. Just leave us hot. We control everything. So I'm like, okay. So so we go through to the opening video, right? And at the end of the video, I had because I have backup everything when I'm doing a show, and I had her VO backed up on my instant replay, and I had my finger ready to go in case something went wrong. And we got to the end of the video, and the video stopped, and we just sat there. And you know, 3 seconds is eternity when you're doing a show. If you have 3 seconds of nothing going on, you have gone down. And it's over. Right? Especially on a corporate show, you know, I mean, bands always stop between tunes and screw around and tune up and everything else. But a corporate show, that doesn't work, you know? So we got to the end of the video and everything just came to a screeching halt. And I knew, I was so ready to take her VO. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, blah, 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 and play her on. But I didn't, because this guy did not call it. So, and I went like this. And I looked over at him, you know, and he looked at me, he froze. He just didn't know what to do. And the client's on the comm and said, play the VO, play the VO. And I just sat there and I looked at him and my hand was on my mouse, ready to go. And he didn't call it. So I let him burn. And that's the first time in my 40 years in this business that I didn't take matters into my own hands and not let somebody burn, but I let him burn. And afterwards, he apologized to everybody about 16 times. And I told the client afterwards, when I saw him backstage, I says, you know, I had your VO ready to go. And he goes, I know. He says, don't worry about it. It's not your fault. I said, man, and the guy that, you know, Mike Karp, it's all of his gear and everything, who hires me all the time. You know, he said, man, he says, that was hard for you to do, wasn't it? And I said, oh my God. I says, I knew I could, in a split second, I could have saved the show. And I said, it went down. He says, we were stuck with, you know, holding our units, you know. We look like
but
fools.
The reality is you did the right thing, because he gave you an edict.
Specific orders to not do anything without his call. So I let him burn because he didn't call it. And to this day, it bothers me to think about it, you know, because I wouldn't normally do that, you know. I mix the show.
Well,
you know?
you didn't really have a choice, because then you were thinking that, well, if I did that, he might just get really angry. Maybe
he could have exploded. You know,
yeah, maybe he wanted that dead silence. I don't know.
I don't know. All right, he might have wanted, because sometimes at the end of videos they like, you know, like a half a beat of black before they go on to the next thing, right? Mm-hmm. Some people don't. They want a little crossfade there. So I'm really careful about catching the end of the videos and doing my voiceovers. And if there's a lot of music trailing on the end of the video, sometimes I tell the video guys, don't stop your machine until I tell you you're audio black on VTA, right? So what I'll
Right.
do is I'll pot it down and I'll let the music trail a little bit, and I'll lay the VO on top of that music. And what I usually tell my clients when they produce their videos for the show, send me, if not, give it to me on site, the music for your videos, because they're usually the same music, because they brand to a certain tune, right? And I said, I'll tear it apart and make some play-ons out of it. And then I'll have 6 play-ons ready to go. So if we run out of music, or if there's a dead spot, or if a demo doesn't work, I can put a bed underneath them. So there won't be a big old black nothing.
Wow. I wish I would have known you in the days when I was producing shows, because after hearing you talk, I like you.
I've been doing this a long time, and I've been doing corporate shows a long time, and I build certain things into my show so that things got to go pretty wrong for you to trip me up.
Because you've been doing it a long time.
I have safeties
and that's why you
in
get
everything.
The big money.
That's why you get the big money. Did you say the guy's name was Luke?
I'm sorry?
The guy's name was Luke?
Well, Luke was the husband of the presenter, and he was a good guy, and he didn't attack me because, theoretically, him backstage, as far as he was concerned, I bombed, but he knew, because he was standing there when I'm sorry?
Luke was on comm?
Oh yeah, because he was doing the graphics. He was running her playback machine.
You should have told him that you were his father.
Luke, use the force.
I think there's quite a skill in the whole corporate world. I mean, I often look at the telly, when you're watching the telly and you're watching a live show, like awards or anything, and I go, I don't know who's got nerves of steel and does there's just so much going on.
Well, Fred is one of those guys. Fred is. That's
Fred,
what Fred does.
You know what? I told Fred last week, I said, when you come to town, you tell me and I'll come help you for free, because I don't know how he does what he does. And I just want to be a part of it sometimes so I can learn his, just to experience it, because it's just totally, it's amazing. I was on a remote truck once or twice doing a corporate show, and the screaming and hollering that they do is just, I can't deal with that. It's like, go scream at somebody else. I can't deal with the screaming and hollering, but because I used to do the press room for the Oscars and the Emmys, and we would hear the show call all the time. And oh my God, I'll tell you, they swear at people, and it's just like, I don't ever want to be on a show like that. That was just, in fact, one of the reasons why I don't do any of the award shows anymore is because it wasn't enough days to be worth it on some of my bigger shows. And I just didn't like the bullshit. There's just so much bullshit. So
I couldn't do it. I don't think.
Hello, Chris. Fred, so how do you do what you do?
I don't do network shows.
What was that? What was that?
Don't do network shows. The network shows are all that way.
They're crazy. They're
They're
crazy.
insane.
I used to do CBS up front. I used to do NBC up front. And I'll tell you, the show callers got to be in an isolated room because they scream through the whole show. It's just ridiculous. And I don't have that. I don't want to hear that. You know what? Our job is not that, we're not rocket scientists here. We're just doing a show.
That's right. Well, not all of us are rocket scientists, but some of us are.
Yeah, I guess. I have a friend that actually is.
Greg Baker, rocket scientist. There you go.
Oh, what's all that junk in the back of your van? You going on a camping trip?
Me?
Yeah, Chris, you got a bunch of junk in the back of your van.
Oh, I am on a camping trip, so I'll just briefly regale you with what happened earlier today.
Yeah, it doesn't look like you've shaved in about a week.
God bless you. God bless you, my son.
I went up. I'm in a pretty badass 4x4 with big tires, and it's lifted.
Yeah, you told us about it. Yeah.
So I went to this place called Kavanaugh Ridge, which is kind of near Lee Vining, California. It's just above. It's kind of like on the other side of Yosemite. As a matter of fact, when I was driving, I was getting close to touching the border of the Yosemite Park. So at any rate, I'm at about 11,000 feet, and I'm trying to get to this alpine lake where I know there's some cool camping, and there's still snow up there. So
wow.
There's a patch of snow that's like 3 feet long or 3 feet wide, and I'm like, I can cross that. And so I start crossing it, and lo and behold, there is a effing tree stump underneath the snow. So let's just say that my gas tank is compressed, and thank God it didn't breach. And thank God I drove the car about once I had to winch my way out. I almost pulled 4 trees out of the ground, winching my way out of this thing.
Wow.
And then I drove about 10 feet and, turned the car off and got underneath it. And man, the whole, they have a protection piece of metal that kind of starts in front of the gas tank and goes all the way to the back. And that thing is toast. And the actual gas tank got compressed and pushed out and was like 4 millimeters from the drive shaft.
Wow.
So I had an axe, probably in the photo behind me. Any rate, so I hammered the axe because it was a nice triangular shape gradient in between the drive shaft and the gas tank and the shielding and pushed it back. So now I've got this much room between the drive shaft and the gas tank, and there's no breach. And now I'm driving through Yosemite Park.
Wow, that's phenomenal. And that's after you left the Meyer showroom.
Right. So I did 4 days with Magoo. So it was 3 days, kind of the classic training that they do. And then the 4th day was a course they haven't done in a while on subwoofers. And that was really interesting. I tell you, man, that the 4th day was just absolutely fascinating, combining gradients with end fires. And
subwoofer stuff is so interesting.
Everybody in the entire room was just captivated. The rest of it's, you got to find out about the phase alignment, and then you got to buy, a $1,000 license for Rational Audio's tool, and then you got to buy, an analog to digital with some XLR in, so you can place your microphones around the room. I mean, it's kind of an extra bit of kit. Oh, and the other big thing was it is. And the other big thing that kind of looks very cool, unfortunately, we could not see or hear, but the X80 was released, and they've got examples at the Vegas thing.
Yeah, the Infocom, the Meyer Ultra X80. Yeah.
Yeah. So it looks like it's 34 inches high. So it's it's definitely the big brother of the X40.
So were you taking the Smart class, or were you taking the Meyer Sim class? Does Meyer still offer the Sim class?
No, they don't use it. They use Space Map now.
Really?
Wow. Okay.
No. Space Map's a totally different thing.
Well, Space Map is for designing stuff, right?
No, Sim has been replaced by Smart, but everybody who works for Meyer uses it. Sim is
Smart.
You can still use it, but I don't even think they make them anymore.
Oh, Fred's at Infocom.
Just a quick note that they gave us a demo of Space Map, which melted my mind. I don't think I've ever, just all of the possibilities rushing through. So essentially, does everybody here know what Space Map is or not?
No.
Okay, so Space Map is essentially you take any 3D form, okay, with straight edges. They're not getting into curved edges. So you take any 3-dimensional form, and you can place speakers anywhere inside that or on the outside points, and they divide things up into triangles. But basically what happens is that you obviously, if you just took a cube, right, perfect square with a Z dimension the same, and you put subwoofers at each corner, and maybe point sources at each corner, and then maybe X40s up high in Z, you can take a mono channel of a B buzzing, and you can fly it 3-dimensionally around the room.
Whoa.
Now Kurt uses this all the time. Kurt, right? You use this all the time.
No, not Space Map. He's right about the way he's doing it. It's not really applicable to what I do. I mean, if it was at an installation or some kind of special.
Sounds like an immersion. It sounds like an immersion tool.
Yeah.
Well, it's basically it it rethinks, Atmos 7.x.x, because what the ability to take a mono channel and move it around the room, and the way they do it is that you have to have a Galileo, and you reboot the Galileo into what they call space map mode, which basically means that all of the delays and panning is real time with an iPad app. That's kind of what's
Yeah, it only works on Galaxy. It doesn't work on a Galileo.
Oh, sorry, I meant to say
You can
Galileo. So
also you can also use cameras to track a person, and as they walk around the space, their voice will move with them.
That's
So
right.
a long time ago, I went to a Meyer demo. A long time ago, it's probably maybe 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. I went to a Myers demo in a theater here in LA, and they put a mic on somebody, and they had speakers all the way around the room, and they put a guy on the stage, and they walked around the stage, and it tracked him going around. The sound shifted in the room based on where he was standing in the room.
So that
And
would have been
that's
LCS.
constellation.
They bought LCS.
Here's what blew my mind though back then is if he came downstage or upstage, the acoustic image of him traveled farther away and then came closer to you as he went forward and back on the stage, and that just fried my brain. I couldn't even believe that. That was just like too tricky.
Yeah, that was LCS, and Meyer bought LCS, and that's sort of where Space Map evolved from. So
Right, now,
I
that
never
wasn't
word has been
Jonathan
improved
Dean, the
upon.
person who invented that LCS. Was that Jonathan Dean who invented that, or am I once again wrong?
Canadian guy. I think that might be right.
I never have a budget big enough to do immersion, When I was talking to what's his face at I was in one of his yakking with him about, oh man, he works for Avid. He's mixed for everybody big. What's his name?
Scoville?
Robert Scoville?
Yes, I'm talking to Scoville about it, and he says, "Oh, we got to use these on all of our shows." It's like, dude, I will never have enough money on one of my corporate shows to do speakers in enough places to make immersion work. I'm lucky if I get the right amount of line array boxes. They say, "Can't you do this with 6 boxes instead of 8?" It's like, no. I need 3 downfill cabinets, over the stage, aimed down to pick up the first 30 feet. Well, we don't have a budget for those. Oh, yes, you do. I mean, I constantly fight with people about, delays. The last show that I had trouble with that show caller guy, I had a 100-foot stick of truss with 4 arrays of 932s for my delays to shoot the last 50 feet. We were in a San Diego convention hall where everything is concrete and steel, and I needed the delays back there so I didn't have to put the line arrays, focus them up so high so they weren't whacking off the back wall, And he says, "Well, I got the latest drawing and the truss was gone." I'm like, "Where'd my delays go?" "Oh, they couldn't afford it." So I ended up doing sticks by pillars and had to. I was splitting hairs to get it loud enough back there without aiming the array up higher. And man, I didn't want to hit that back wall too hard because the echo on the stage is just huge. And it totally throws these unprofessional presenters.
Well, at the risk of repeating myself, Bruce, that's why you get the big money. That's all I could say. That's why you get. But to go back to Kurt, because I'm really curious on knowing a little bit more about, because I said I might have been incorrect in what I said, and I'd like you to correct me. Are they still using SIM? Because I haven't really heard of anybody using SIM lately.
I haven't either. And SIM was trick ass.
I don't think they make it anymore. I think it's legacy. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I'm positive of that.
But you don't need all of that dedicated hardware now with
Smart. Yeah. Smart's wonderful.
Much
I
to
love
John
Smart.
Meyer's dismay, I'm sure. And I'm sure that John Meyer would probably say that SIM has got, advantages over Smart and that it's higher resolution or things like that. But I think that the practicality of being able to take your laptop and do it is kind of taken over.
Yeah. To do Smart, you just need an IO device and a laptop and a couple of good mics. And to take Smart, you got to have a whole rack of cool ass stuff,
Yeah, well, SIM machines at Tree Space, I think, it's not that big or bulky. I just don't dedicated. I don't think you need a dedicated piece anymore. It may be better, but
I run Smart on my Mac, which is what I do a whole number of things. My show computers are two Dells, but my Mac is always there because I run Spotify for walk-in, and my console files are on the Mac, and Smart's on the Mac. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the Mac with Smart too. You really use Spotify for walk-in? You don't have trouble with that when all the punters show up?
I have never. Well, usually what I'll do is I'll tell the production people, that whoever's in charge, I always say, give me do a walk-in file on Spotify, and just email me the link, and then it takes 2 seconds to load it, and then I have all their music, and that's what I
But
play.
you're not actually streaming it.
No, because once I get it online, I download it.
Yeah, right. That's a whole different thing. People
Yeah.
always want me to stream it, and I'm like, I'm not
That's dangerous.
I guarantee you it's
Yeah.
going to fail.
It's going to take a dump in the middle of your.
Yep.
By the way, just an FYI, you mentioned Scoville earlier, and Scoville has on his Spotify playlist all the walk-in musics from all these different engineers that they use the various shows.
Yeah, I have a bunch of stuff from other people. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Because once they email me the link, I got it.
Yeah, it seems like Spotify's the way to go, even though I decided to go with YouTube Music, just because that with the YouTube Music subscription, you don't get any commercials on YouTube.
You don't on Spotify if you have their pro one. It's $10 a month or $9.95.
Yeah, I know.
Something.
I know, but the point of the matter is I like watching YouTube videos, and I don't want to be interrupted with commercials.
Oh, the
And so
commercials,
that's-
right.
That's how it works.
Yeah. Oh, I hear
that's
you.
how it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
Anyway, so hey, Chris,
Yes.
I just want to say, that's a sneaky way, for you to save money on gasoline on what you did, by the way. I just want you to know.
Going the back way over the mountain.
I'm telling you,
it basically
I'm telling you,
compressed
that
his
was
gas tank so
easy.
it can't fill up the way it used to, so he's saving money, it's very economical now to him, So
Yeah, I
Fred,
don't think
you're at
so. This
Infocom.
morning's 4x4.
Fred, you're at
This morning's
Infocom?
a 4x4 3K.
Okay.
I
Fred,
am
are
at
you
the
working
airport.
right now?
No, I'm at the airport waiting for my airplane to go home. I've been
Oh, that
walking.
explains why there's so much shit in the ceiling. I got it.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
going to say, what is that ceiling? I know that ceiling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm at gate C7, just hanging out.
Okay, very good. Hey, Fred, tell us a little about Infocom. What do you like about it? And I got to shut my screen off for a minute, but I'll be right back. But I'm listening.
I never, this is my first time here. This is like NAB on steroids, and it was awesome. I saw a lot of people that I haven't seen in years. A lot of audio equipment here. I was
Yes.
blown away at how much audio equipment's here.
I went to NAB a couple of times, and I found that Infocom is much more friendlier to us PA guys.
Yeah.
NAB was cool, but it was very broadcast oriented, and I'm not.
It wasn't always that way, though.
I
Infocom
wasn't
always that way. No.
And
No,
I try
Infocom.
to go to NAM too, because NAM always has their PA section, which is nice, and NAM's just a lot of fun.
Yeah. NAM is
But
a
I
lot
only-
of fun.
I only had time to walk the main building. I never got over to the North Hall or the West Hall. Ran into Scoville first thing. They dropped me off at the north door, and I walk in, and I'm like, oh, end rooms. I bet Robert's right down here. I walk down, I go in the door, and him and what's her name? The woman that hates gear talk. I'm talking about, Kurt. Karen Dunn. Yeah, him and Karen Dunn are sitting on the couch. So I just said hi to him for a minute. Then I went out walking around. Then I came back about 12:30, and I watched the EAW demo in that room. And I walked out of that room, ran into Scott Ragsdale, who used to mix for Joe Bonamassa, and he was waiting to go in to see Robert. And I go, no, Robert's speaking out on the floor. So I drug him out on the floor, and Robert did a little deal about Anya and how that all works. And then I should be seeing him somewhere here real soon. He's actually getting on a plane and flying to St. Louis, I think, because he's got a Chesney show. So,
Yeah,
But
he's
yeah, I
now
ran
with
into a lot-
EAW. Robert's now with EAW. Somebody had
He's now with
mentioned
the-
that he was with Avid, but now he's no longer with Avid. Now he's with EAW, which is
He's
with the
not
EAW.
with
pretty big
Avid.
thing.
nope, he's not with Avid anymore. He's with EAW.
Holy cow!
Yeah, that happened a few months ago. So yeah, but I ran into a bunch of people. I mean, the guy at Electrosonics that I dealt with many years ago, and I bought all my RF gear. Had a nice conversation with him. I was actually here just looking at control systems. We're going to replace the AMX stuff where I work at the Bureau of Land Management. So I went to AMX and I looked around. Didn't really talk to anybody. Went to Crestron and got a lot of really good information at Crestron. And then I went to QSC, and they're the ones that I'm actually looking forward to possibly doing something with, because QSys is just, it's massive. They do so much stuff in it. And it's the way from what I was talking to all these people, it sounds like it's not proprietary. People can code and write APIs pretty quickly. And so if I need something modified after they get all done, and we find we need something, I should be able to find a programmer for a couple $100 and they can just write me a thing to do whatever it is that I need to do. So, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I made a lot of good contacts. I brought my backpack. I'm old school. I didn't want to have to carry around a bag and all the paperwork and pamphlets and everything. Forgetting that today's the world of cell phones, so everything's got a freaking QR code. So
yeah.
I basically carried my water bottle around in my backpack all day.
I can't believe he's with EAW. That's crazy. Doesn't Mackie own EAW?
Not anymore.
Not
anymore?
Yeah.
Oh, thank God, man.
No. So, Fred, how was the swag this year? Was there any swag?
There was a lot of stuff out, but again, I didn't pick anything up. But it seemed like everybody had some sort of deal. A couple people had food. It was kind of nice to walk by and grab an apple or grab a croissant. But yeah, it was like I said, I thought it was NAB on steroids. The only thing that we were missing was all the big antenna manufacturers, the video walls. But from what I understand, all the video walls are over in the West Hall.
So, Fred, have you listened to the Cedar?
I bought one at NAMM a couple of years ago.
You bought one?
I
Damn,
bought one.
things are expensive as hell.
I know, it was like $1,700. Yeah, it's the two-channel version.
Those things are amazing.
They are amazing.
What does the Cedar do? What does the Cedar do?
The Cedar gets rid of
the Cedar, all the background noise.
Background noise. Yeah, I did an interview with Oprah Winfrey at her office in on Wilshire, and all the cars, because there's a big glass front of the building, and we were sitting in the lobby. And basically, when I spec'd the job, it was 3 microphones to do the interview, and I wanted a Yamaha console because I wanted the Dugan in it, and then I got a Cedar too. So basically, the Dugan allows you to not have all those mics going at the same time, only the one who's speaking, and then with a Cedar on there, it took all the background noise away.
It makes it sound like you're in a studio. I mean, I was standing on the
it's
floor
just amazing. And Waves plugin has the WNS is similar. It's not as good, but it does work. I put the WNS usually on my record feed to take out some of the room reverberance. And then
I was actually going to use mine on my announce mix, but ever since COVID, I got my workload is so fucking insane these days that there's no time. The thing's brand new. It's sitting in the box. It's never been used.
Oh, wow.
It's sitting on my desk. It's like a freaking paperweight.
I'll tell you,
I really want to use it.
When you go to the if you go to the convention, go listen to the Cedar, because he's on the middle of the convention floor. And when you talk, they got like 4 microphones there, and you talk have your friend and you talk in the microphones, and you put the headphones on, and none of the ambience from the convention floor is in the mix. And it's like, holy shit, if that doesn't sell you right there.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I bought it. I went over and I looked at, they had a 6-channel one or an 8-channel one and this little 2-channel one. And I put on the headphones, and it was in bypass, and I'm like, man, he can hear everything in this room. And I engaged it, and it was silent, and it was my voice.
I've started to really enjoy the 5045 too, because I put that inserted on the lectern and on the lavs, because it takes any of that big room sound out of there, so it gives you probably at least 3 dB more headroom. before you get into the danger zone. And I learned about that when they put the plugins in the Yamaha console, and I did a Christmas gig with five or six people on headset mics and a 60-piece orchestra behind them with a 90-piece choir behind them, and everybody was mic'd. And I put the 5045 plug-in, Yamaha's version of it, on each microphone, and took the orchestra right out of their mics. It was just unbelievable. I'm like, man, I love this thing.
Yeah, there's actually a
So it's not
digital
like-
service that does that as well, but not for professional audio like you're talking about. But if you were a salesman and you wanted to be on the beach, evidently you could go through their system, and then you could add your own ambiance, any kind of sound you wanted in the background, like
So
like
Kurt,
typing machines or whatever.
on the big tours, don't they use the 5045s on the vocal mics in the front to help get the band out of the vocal mics? Well, how do they deal with that? Because the band's usually fairly loud on the stage, right?
I don't really ever see anything like that. I mean, they'll have optigates sometimes.
Yeah, what are those?
It's an optical gate that plugs into the back of the microphone, and it has a VCA in it that you can program. You can program the sensitivity. So when you step
Really?
away from the microphone, it VCAs down the. And if the fan runs on phantom power, if the phantom power fails, it fails with the device open.
I never even
love it,
heard of
but
one of those.
people get
That's
weird about
cool.
Oh, it's great. Cleans up your mix.
Oh my God, that's
Wonderful.
wonderful.
And if you don't know, you don't have to, mute and unmute with hard mutes or have it programmed. They can just, when they walk up to it, it senses their face and it opens the mic.
Oh, good Lord. How cool is that?
Yeah.
So if you have a couple of vocal mics because they're walking around doing different things, you don't have to worry about them picking one up and just singing in it, because it'll automatically turn itself on.
Well, I mean, it's made to go on a mic stand. If you held it handheld, it would sense your hand. It would never turn off. It's like the thing that keeps your garage door from closing on your car. It senses that there's something there and it opens the VCA. But it's not a switch. It's not an on-off, so there's no click or pop. It's literally a VCA that ramps up.
Just sort of ramps up and down. Oh,
Yeah.
That's very cool. I didn't even know that existed. That's great.
Oh yeah, they've been around for a long time. I mean, it's kind of a follow-up to what the Dead had, where they had the little mats that open the sliding doors at the grocery store. So they took those and cut them down so they'd be smaller, and then they used that to it had line voltage running through it, a couple of volts, and it opened a noise gate. So when you stood on the platform, it would open the gate.
So, it's funny. We used a bunch of those at a convention. We were doing the Sony booth for E3 for years, from the beginning of E3. And they had all these demos in the booth, and we didn't want the demos to be running with all the noise all the time. So we built into the demos these pads, and the demo would start up when you stood on the pad.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool. It worked really well.
No, there's a lot of cool little tricks. Like Dan Healy used to put walkie-talkie mics on a circuit card and suspend them inside the drum shell, right below the drum head, like a half-inch below the drum head. And then there was a little 1/8" jack on one of the vent holes in the drum that you plugged a cable into. And then they would mic it with a 421 up on top, but that's good 6 inches up. So based on the speed of sound, when you hit the drum, the waveform gets to the cheap little walkie-talkie mic first and sends
Right.
a pulse down. So it races down electrically. It opens the gate before the first waveform that's in the mic you're actually using can get to the microphone. So
Isn't that
it
interesting?
doesn't use the microphone itself that you're trying to put in the PA. It uses a whole different trigger source that's closer and therefore faster to open the gate. They did it with the B3 too. You take a line out of the B3, and because when you push the key, the voltage goes and opens the noise gate before the sound can make it from the rotor to the microphone. Same principle. So it kept
Interesting.
all of the wind noise out of.
So,
Problems with Leslie's is to get the mics close enough to have it sound good. You also get a lot of wind noise.
yeah, I noticed that a while back when I was micing those things. So the gate in the console isn't fast enough to get the attack exactly the way you
No.
might like it.
No, it's not in the console. These were external gates. But,
Right. But or it could be in a rack. But I mean,
But by
object-
using the beginning of the impulse, no gate is going to be able to open fast enough to let the impulse through. Now, I'm like in a DAW or something where you can do look ahead and everything, that's a different story. But live, the fact that you're
Interesting.
using the initial transient of the impulse to open the gate, you're gonna,
right.
there's no way to not lose part of the original transient.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
you
that
don't-
makes
you don't-
total
you
sense.
don't
I didn't
chop
even
off-
know. What a cool ass thing. I didn't even know you could do that. That's great.
You don't chop off the front end.
See, I'm not a band guy, so this is so interesting. Whenever we talk to Kurt and he tells us of these band stuff, that's so
I
cool.
mean, that's a very specialized thing. That's not something that a lot of people are doing. More people should do it. If I was consistently working with the same, same band or same drummer, I would certainly try all of those things.
Very cool.
And the isolation is better because it's like you're not relying on, a trade-off between your threshold and the attack time and all of that. It's inside the drum, so it's isolated from the stage noise. So it's you can be much more open about the way that you're gating stuff. It doesn't have to be so.
You could really hear the harmonics of the drums then better because the gate's not shutting it down.
Yeah, you don't have to base your gating on ambient noise. You can base it on what you want the drum to actually sound like.
Right. Now,
That's
would
so
you
cool.
need that if you have the drums behind plexiglass? Because then you're already isolating all the ambient noise, but not only you're isolating the band from the actual drum, but you're also
with plexiglass is only
vice
going to be
versa.
effective to a certain frequency level.
The point is to isolate the mics from the other drums and cymbals and whatnot.
To a degree, yeah. Because
To a degree, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess that would do it then. Wow, this has been a fountain of knowledge, this show. I mean, I can't believe how much we've learned. They say that every time you learn something new, you get another line or ripple in your brain. And so, Bruce, I mean, your brain is rippled out right now.
I have another question for Kurt. Kurt, may I?
Sure.
So
I hope I can answer it.
you'll know. So the drum mics are always very close to the drums. And then you have the overheads that are up high. So is there some time, do you adjust time delay on the inputs for the microphones that are on the drums to align to the overheads?
If I have that kind of time, I will. Rarely do I have that kind of time, or rarely am I, seeing a repeat artist that I, already know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, people do time align.
The mics on the drum kit.
It's also pretty critical to try to get the overheads to be equidistant from the snare.
Right.
Most people set them up so they look right, but if they look right, they're probably wrong, because one of them should actually be closer to center than the other one in order to get the snare equidistant. Because if you have your stereo overheads panned out and then you're trying to position the snare mic so that it's in the center, unless you also have the image of the snare in the center on the overheads, you're never going to quite get there. There's always going to be the one that's close mic, and then the other image is going to be offset.
Right, a little bit farther away, right.
And it's also going to cancel differently because two different distances. So that's something that a lot of people will do, even with it. They'll get a tape measure out and do it. I personally like to use VP88 because it's a single point, 3-element stereo microphone. You put that right over the snare. And
that's your two overhead mics, and they're the same time because they're built into one housing, right?
Yes, and it's actually 3 elements. It's like 3 SM81s. One's firing forward, and the other 2 are firing sideways.
What a great idea!
Comes out on a 5-pin connector to 2 XLRs, and you can change the pattern a little bit. It can be a mid-side or stereo. It's great for choir and like small like orchestra stuff recording.
The one time I fussed with that a little bit, and it doesn't directly have directly related to this, but we were in a small venue doing a band, and basically it was just a left and right stack on each side of the stage, and I basically timed the PA to the kick drum, and the band got real tight then. It just popped, we're not in that big of a space. So it was like, maybe 40 feet from the PA to the kick drum. So I timed the PA to the kick drum mic and made quite a difference in that little room.
It can definitely make a huge difference in a smaller mid-sized space. Because you've got
Robert
naturally.
Robert actually made a snare drum with a speaker. So he pulls the snare drum out of the holder, puts his special snare drum in there with the speaker, and then impulses it with these little clicker thing.
You know what I've done sometimes is I'll put a if the band's not there when I'm setting the PA up, then I'll put an anchor basically on the stage where the drum set's going to go, and I'll time to the anchor on the stage. And I do that with subs sometimes too, because I rarely put the subs out front unless it's a band, because corporate stuff, basically the subs are for walk-in music and play-ons, you know? So basically I'll do all the subs together behind the stage, dead center, and I'll do a cardioid so that I'm not killing the frickin', you know, video guys backstage. And then I'll time to the subs. And, you know, with Smart, you can't, it's hard for the location finder to find the subs because it's low stuff, you know?
Right.
So what I'll start out doing before I line the waves, I'll just pop a little anything powered speaker on top of the sub array, and I'll time to the sub array, and then I'll look at the waveforms and line up the waveforms. But
Sure, that gets you
it's
close.
just some, oh man, this is such cool stuff. It's so good to talk to you because you see this
Well,
from
Bruce,
a
you
total different
learned
side.
so much. And based on what I said about the ripples in the brain, you're going to need a new hat size. Your hat size just went up a quarter, you know, so there you go. And by the way, I want to thank Kurt for giving us the name of the show. You know, if they look right, they must be wrong. I love it. There you go. You know, that'll be the
great.
episode
Yeah.
title.
If they
Thanks,
look right,
Kurt.
it must be wrong.
Yeah, you know, and with that in mind, listen, I have to go to a funeral right now.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry.
and we've been on for an hour, and I appreciate you once again, 212th consecutive meeting, Thinking Aloud with Friends, and we learned a lot today. I mean, amazing. You
This
guys
is
were
great.
just
Yeah.
brilliant. I can't believe it. Of all the people who came something in with information that stumped the band, Wayne Sims, good job all the way straight from Wagga Wagga with the way to print out your, your console, whatever you printed out. I
I got to try that. That's great. Yeah.
whatever it is. So anyway, that's about it. So before we say goodbye to everybody, and by the way, the audience is increasing in the show. And
Oh,
it's all
that's
thanks
great.
to you guys. Yeah, we're getting a bigger audience every day. You know,
And you
one by
post them
one,
on
two by two.
YouTube. I've seen them on YouTube afterwards the
No,
next
we're
day. or
live
something.
on YouTube right now. We're live on
oh.
YouTube. We're live on Facebook. We're live on LinkedIn, and we're live on Twitter right now. But what I do is I post it up to Spotify as a podcast afterwards.
Ah.
And I found a new service called Vidyo, Vidyo, that you download the show to, or you upload the show to, and then it makes little snippets so you could make shorts of it. And it's really, you know, I don't have time to really go through the show and pull out the really highlight moments, but Vidyo does it. It somehow it figures out the good
Oh,
parts
wow.
to put up, and it puts the captions on for shorts. So you know, I mean, if I had my choice of doing anything in life, I would do this more than any, you know, just, you know, I was talking to somebody the other day and I said to them, you know, I've got a great life, everything, you know, everything I've got everything that anybody would want in life. I've got a lot of love in my life. I've got, you know, a little bit of financial security. I've got a bunch of good friends that I've had for my whole life. You know, everything is really good, you know, and the reality is the only thing I really never had in my life was stardom. So if I could only get this to be the point where everybody's watching, this is the talk of the town, boy, that would, you know, but then that might be the end of my life. And I don't want that. So we're going to keep working on it. You know, as somebody once said to me, the success is not actually getting the success, but it's the journey towards accomplishing that worthwhile goal. And that's what success is to me, you know, because once you get to the top of the mountain, you look over and you say, "Whoa, well, there's another mountain over there. So I'm going to go over that mountain now." So, I mean, until you get to Mount Everest, that's the highest mountain in the world, right?
Is it?
Just watch
Yeah, I
out
guess
for
it is.
Just watch out for your gas tank when you're going over that mountain.
That's it. You know, that's it. And with that in mind, you know what? That could be another title of the show. Boy, Kurt, I'm going to really be up tonight. I'm going to be up tonight thinking about which one do I want to go with. But anyway, listen, guys, thanks so much for watching. Remember, you make it happen, and we will see you again for the 213th show next week. And I will be back at my home base in Hawaii.
I won't be here next week. I'll be in the middle of a show next week. So.
All right, well, maybe we'll cancel. You know, Bruce ain't going to be here. Oh my God, maybe we'll cancel. No. Not a chance.
I miss
Not a
Kenny.
chance.
Kenny's
Yeah,
on the show.
Kenny will
tonight.
be back. Kenny will be back
And
next week
it's
as well.
Juneteenth next week.
Yeah. So we got a lot going on.
Who cares?
Talk to you guys later. Thanks so much for coming, everybody watching. Remember, you make it happen. Share the show with your friends. Give it the thumbs up. Do whatever you have to do to make your life worthwhile. That's all I could say. And help me. Help. Hey, brother, can you help a brother in need? That's all there is to it. So we'll talk again soon. And thank you, everybody. So we're stopping the live stream right now. And we are going to be off the air now.